Okay, it looks like we are live. All right, good evening, everybody. And it looks like we've already got one question. Now, the topic that I'm anticipating focusing on is Jefferson versus Hamilton, the Washington and Adams administration. But I'm going to go ahead and put a poll out there and see what y'all are studying. Okay, so what are y'all studying this week? Oh my goodness, Joseph. He's putting a time limit on it. This better not be over an hour. Okay, why is that, Joseph? All right, you could always just leave, right? I'm curious. Okay, so what are y'all studying this week? Let's see. American Revolution. Let's see. Hamilton administration. All right, Mr. Bensky's with us. All right, so let me go ahead and put this poll out there. All right, so let's see what everybody's doing. Y'all go ahead and come in here and respond to the poll just so I can make sure that I am not talking about something that most of y'all aren't doing right now. Okay. All right, good deal, good deal. All right, more learning. That's right, Kim. Now, usually these things, okay, well, interesting. All right, so we've got a little bit about that. So I'll be glad to take questions about the Constitution. It looks like a lot of y'all are still studying the Constitution, the Articles, and there's certainly nothing wrong with that, even though I want to go into Jefferson and Hamilton and all of that kind of stuff. Now, it looks like we've got a few people that have already gone into the Jefferson administration. So it looks like the topic that we had set up for tonight kind of like gets in between all of you. Y'all just, y'all excuse me snacking just a little bit while y'all poll. Keep the polls coming in. All right, and while we're getting the polls in, go ahead and get your questions asked. So far, we've got one question. Okay, so let's go ahead and get some questions in there. All right, Zoe's asked a question. We want to get some more questions in there. All right, so y'all go right ahead. Get your questions in there. As far as the polls, 11, 12, 13, 14, looks like less than half of y'all have answered the polls. So let's go in there. Just when you click on polls, go in there and just click one of those. All it is a one-click poll. We've got 44 people in here. Less than 20 people have answered the polls. And we've got 44 in here and only one question, ladies and gentlemen. So let's go ahead and let's get those questions in there. I tell you, I get distracted easily too, so I can't fault your teacher. I tell you, I mean, man, I tell you what. Okay. All right. So I see one question here. All right. Okay. Let me just wait for y'all just a little bit. Okay. Yes. And some of y'all, now the thing is, when y'all are saying Jacksonian America, I've seen two people say Jacksonian America, and only one person has voted something else. So at least one of y'all has not voted. Okay. At least one of y'all has yet to vote. All right. So we've still got, let's see, we've got over 20 of y'all voting. So that's pretty awesome. All right. Now, remember, your question does not have to be about the topic that we've got for today. Okay. The question does not need to be about the topic that we've got for today. So you can ask any APUSH related question that you want. Now, all I'm doing here on the poll is I'm seeing, okay, where are people right now? So we've got a few people that are studying Jackson and that sort of thing. So now the thing is, Dylan, I don't know what Unit 1 means, and that's why I've got this poll up here that identifies what you are studying. Okay, so oh my goodness. Okay, Dylan, Y'all are a little bit behind. Okay, so that, yeah, that's woo. I don't even have that on the thing anymore. I think we'll probably next week take American Revolution off of the thing and then go on to and maybe add the There of Good Feelings or Jackson. Oh, okay. So you've got a 2-year long APUSH. All right. Okay, ladies and gentlemen. Now I've got 3 questions now. Remember, you can upvote people's questions as well. Okay. All right. Okay, good. George Washington, political parties, and all of that. Okay, come on. We got more of y'all in here. Let's get some questions. All right. Yeah, there are some states that teach U.S. history in 2 years. I know that New Jersey is one of those states that they have U.S. History 1 and U.S. History 2, which I think that's great. I think every state should do that. I personally think that 1 year is really not enough time to teach this stuff. So as far as that goes, yeah, okay, Dylan, quit that nonsense. Okay, like say that the first year goes through the Civil War and Reconstruction. Okay, then you sound like somebody who's halfway intelligent about U.S. history, and then Unit 6 starts with American industrialization and the Gilded Age. Okay, so like really, people, just quit using numbered periods when you're just discussing history with people. All right. Okay. So as far as that, yeah, ancient and modern. I don't know how ancient this stuff is. All right. So anyway, ladies and gentlemen, most of y'all have answered the poll. Okay, we've got 6 questions in here now. Zoe, you are rocking it with 5 upvotes. All right. So great, great. All right. So as far as that goes, now let me go ahead. Oh gosh, Andre, I love you using the term Jeffersonian Republicans. It sounds so much more sophisticated than Democratic Republicans. All right. So let's go ahead and we are going to start with Wesley's question, okay? Because let's go ahead and start with our warm up. For many of you who are still studying the Constitution, the articles in the Constitution. So let's go ahead and take those questions first, and then we'll kind of move on from there. So what are the reasons that, what was or were the reasons that the original government created failed? So why were the articles not successful? All right. So when it comes down to it, Wesley, the operative principle of government is force. If a government cannot force anybody to do something, then it's not a government. You can't make laws unless there's some means to back it up. And so what you had here was in the Articles of Confederation, you had this central government that was in charge of the Army and Navy and like waging a war, which we were successful, thank God. But of course, again, thank France as much as anything. But this government could not collect taxes, and that was a problem. Anytime you're in a situation where a government cannot collect taxes, that means that this government is supposed to be waging war and all of that, but it can't collect a tax unless the states decide that they want to pay a tax. And so all this government could do was request money from the states, and some states may pay and others may not. And so the issue here is that, first of all, the government can't tax. Now, second of all, this government had absolutely no control over the economy. All right. So that is an issue as well, that there's no control over the economy, which means that, and I'm not saying like a planned economy or something like that, but you could have to where North Carolina could put a tariff on tobacco from Virginia. Could say that we're going to, so you didn't have the commerce clause. There wasn't a guaranteed free flow of commerce across the United States. So these states were in a military alliance, but they didn't have any, well, and then also there wasn't really any kind of like currency that was worth anything. And of course, that's what Alexander Hamilton's trying to do in his report on the public credit. And so those are the biggest things there, is that the government couldn't tax. And then you've got a situation where there's, states can block commerce from other states, which is inhibiting the economy. And then finally, if I'm thinking in terms of 3 reasons, I'm thinking the third one is that the articles had to be, it had to be unanimous in order to amend them. So that's really one of the biggest flaws of the Articles of Confederation, was that it was inflexible. So when you saw a problem problem, it was nearly impossible. So if you've got 13 people and you want to decide what kind of pizza to order, you're not going to be able to find something that all 13 people are going to want to eat. And so you would be at the mercy of that one person, and there's always that one person who will not go along with the rest of the group. And so that was one of the things there, that really the Articles of Confederation, they were a glorified military alliance. And this is basically a confederation of free, sovereign, and independent states. Now, the Constitution, leaves some sovereignty with the states. But when you look at the Constitution, you wouldn't call this free, sovereign, and independent states, maybe partially sovereign, but not free, sovereign, and independent. So just as far as this federal government that was set up, even though they did do the Northwest Ordinance, they won the war okay. Shays Rebellion is, of course, another thing. That's one of the biggest things to remember as a causal factor behind the Constitutional Convention was Shays Rebellion, and how that went on for months, and Massachusetts couldn't do anything about it, and the central government had no authority to, no power or authority to go into Massachusetts and set that right. So those are some of the reasons why the Articles of Confederation failed. Thank you for your question, Wesley. All right, and let's see what else is. Yes, we will go over the Washington administration. Okay, so how would the Constitution be different if Jefferson and Adams had attended the convention? I can't really tell you that. That's like one of those big what ifs, because really, had Jefferson been there, I don't, it's hard to imagine Jefferson in a room like that amongst all of those people. Jefferson was so soft-spoken that how much would he have really impacted it? And I think that Jefferson, even though I wouldn't call him an anti-federalist, so to speak, even though you could say maybe a moderate anti-federalist in the sense that he wanted a Bill of Rights, Jefferson, I don't know how well he would have gotten on in that crowd that was there in Philadelphia. John Adams, not sure what we would have seen there, but I think that two people being in the room there wouldn't necessarily have made that big of a deal, even though they're major people over there. But interesting question, Paul. All right. And so then let's take a look at Zach's question. How did the American Revolution influence the Constitution and Bill of Rights? And how did the newly formed country decide to put the rules in effect without the use of the military? All right, not sure I quite understand that second part of that question, but the American Revolution, of course, influenced the Articles of Confederation a great deal, because with the American Revolution, it's like, we don't want this outside authority telling us what to do. And so the Articles of Confederation, the reason why this central government was so weak is that these people had just been tyrannized by George III and Parliament, and they didn't want to give up that control. Now, the Bill of Rights, what we want to remember there is that the Constitution, as it came out of Philadelphia, the Constitution as it came out of Philadelphia it didn't include a Bill of Rights. And so really, I think the American Revolution, the spirit of the American Revolution was very much alive with these anti-federalists who demanded a Bill of Rights. And they said that we want a Bill of Rights because this is something that our liberties are that important. The Federalists are like, no, we've got plenty of checks and balances in the actual Constitution. You don't need a Bill of Rights, says Hamilton in Federalist 84. But now remember, especially those of y'all that are farther ahead, you know that Hamilton, what he wants is a strong central government, that Hamilton has really no interest in a situation where you've got a limited government. Okay, so as far as that goes, I'd say that the American Revolution was very, very influential in the Bill of Rights. Now, the Constitution, we want to remember the influence of the Enlightenment, and especially a French philosopher, Montesquieu. All right, so Montesquieu, who wrote The Spirit of the Laws, writing about the legislative, executive, and judicial branches. So I would say that you want to make sure that you've got the Enlightenment philosophy presidency as an influence on the Constitution. All right, and let's see here. Okay, so we've got the political parties here. Zoe, you've got a really popular question here, okay? And so as far you're getting them all mixed up, okay? Now, what we need to remember about Federalist and Anti-Federalist, okay? The Federalist and the Anti-Federalist, I wouldn't call them political parties because they're really, hey there, Div. They're really one issue. Okay, so this is kind of like if somebody's like pro-life or pro-choice or something like that. That they're not necessarily. It's not a permanent thing. Like if you think about this with, this whole Kavanaugh thing that's in the news, where there are a couple of Democrats who are thinking about voting for Kavanaugh. There are a couple of Republicans who are thinking about, about 3 Republicans that are thinking about voting against Kavanaugh. And so when you have a single issue, sometimes people will make alliances based on a certain thing. But political parties are really long term. So what we need to remember is that the Federalists and the Anti-Federalists, they